I'm excited to be here tonight to talk to all of you. So thank you for taking some time out of your evening. I'm going to be going through a very brief presentation, but as Tavia said, I'm going to leave ample time for questions. And so feel free to start asking questions as they come up. And we'll get to everything at the end. So I'm going to be speaking to you today about monthly payment options with Beautifi. So Beautifi is a Canadian company, and we're actually the only private lender in Canada that specializes in elective medical procedures. So we don't lend in any other industry. We really were built for clinics and built for patients. So we provide flexible monthly payment plans for really any elective medical care you are looking to get, including fertility care. So that includes treatments as well as medication. So we're really here to, make receiving the best medical care possible and accessible to you. Fertility treatments can be quite costly. And so sometimes the flexibility to spread your payments out over, multiple months or years can really help you get started on the treatments you want now. Compared to putting these kinds of treatments on a credit card, Beautifi is going to have much lower interest rates, and it's really built to be making long-term monthly payments rather than having to pay a large lump upfront cost at once. So a little bit about our program details here. Our minimum amount that we lend for elective medical care is $1,000. So any treatment that you have to pay out of pocket for that is above $1,000, and again, that could include IVF treatments or even just diagnostic tests, genetic testing, medication. Anything above $1,000, you can use Beautifi to pay for that. And you can split your payments up over 6 months all the way to 6 years. So it's completely up to you what term length you want to choose to split your payments. That being said, our loans are completely open. So there is no risk or penalty to make an early payment. And if you were to make an early payment to your monthly payment plan with Beautifi, we waive all the remaining interest and we don't charge any additional prepayment penalties or fees. So it is quite flexible. It's very, very quick to get started as well. So we provide instant approval decisions. You can find out exactly how much you qualify for and what your rate will be in less than an hour. And we can pay Trio or Evolve on your behalf in less than 24 hours. So it's very, very quick. It's often quicker than going to a bank or other private lenders, which is why it's great for this space. The interest rate, as I said, it does start at 5.99%, but it's going to depend on your application. So I'm sure there will be questions about this, but some of the things that we're looking at in a credit application are your credit score, your income, any existing debts you may have. But we really take a holistic approach to looking at your financial situation and your credit quality. And we can also bring on a cosigner if necessary to give you a lower rate. So in fertility care, many partners apply with Beautifi together to strengthen their application so they can, of course, get a lower interest rate. It's always going to be a better rate than your credit card, though. So credit card interest rates in Canada start around, 18 to upwards of 20% at the moment. So Beautifi can offer a lot more competitive rates than that. The other great thing about Beautifi is that there's no impact to your credit score to apply. So if you are just curious to find out how much you get approved for, what the rate is, what your monthly payments will look like on the different terms we offer, you can apply without any hit to your credit score, and your application won't show up on your credit bureau if you're just curious to find out how much you're approved for. So you'll see this statistic up here, 97% of Beautifi clients would refer us to a friend. So we really value customer service and customer experience. And as I said, we work only in this industry and realize that this can be a very emotional decision. So when you do apply with Beautifi, you are connected with a rep who will be assisting you throughout the process and throughout the duration of your loan, really. So you're able to text that individual, email them, speak to them on the phone. It's a very personalized level of service that you'll get, which is very refreshing in the lending space for sure. So a little bit about the application process itself. This is just a snippet of what the application screen will look like. Tavia will be sharing after this webinar an email with more information, as well as a link to start your application with Beautifi if you wanted to get started right away. It's very simple. It's going to ask you about 10 questions. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to fill out these questions, and it's things you'll know off the top of your head. Just general information, maybe some information or some questions about your income, and any, existing mortgage or rent payments you make. But it's very quick. And once you submit that application, a member of our team will reach out to you within 1 hour. And on that phone call, you can speak to them about your rate and ask them any questions you have. And then if you do decide to move forward with Beautifi, we'll send you a document to sign over email. It's very simple, and then we'll be paying the clinic on your behalf. So we arrange payment directly with your clinic. They're notified, and so then you can just, go into the clinic, start your treatments, and not worry about payment at all. You'll be making your monthly payments as arranged with Beautifi in the background. So these are just some quotes from previous patients that have worked with Beautifi and what they have to say about it. You could also check out our Google reviews as well to just see what the experience is like. But we do encourage you to just submit an application since it is risk-free and no obligation to, start talking to Beautifi and seeing what your options are. I did quickly want to share before we get into questions an example of what your payments could look like. So I'm going to reshare my screen here. So I have a calculator here on screen that's going to give you an idea of what your payments could look like depending on your credit quality. So you should be able to access this calculator on Trio and Evolve's website very shortly. It should be live by the end of the week. And it lets you explore just an estimate of what your payments could look like. Now, again, it does depend on your application. And so that's why we encourage you to just submit an application to find out exactly what your payments would be. But if you were curious to know a bit of a range, so for a treatment or procedure that's around $5,000, if you did want to split your payments up to 6 years and have that flexibility, you can still make early payments. Your payments could be as low as $100 per month if you had an excellent credit score. With just a good credit score, they could be around $108 per month, and an average credit score, $111 per month. So not too different. If we're looking at a $15,000, procedure, something a bit larger, with an excellent credit score, you're looking at around $300 per month. Good $325 per month, and average $333 per month. So again, this is just an estimate. It's going to depend, and we encourage you to fill out an application to find out. But it really does show you how accessible your monthly payments can be if you do go with a payment plan with Beautifi. So I'm just going to share back to this screen, and then we can maybe start taking questions. I've put on the screen a QR code to start your application if you wanted to. Again, it takes about 2 to 5 minutes, and you could do it at any time. Our hours are until 8 p.m. East this evening. So if you wanted to start an application this evening and speak to someone, there is some time to do that. If not, I encourage you to fill out an application and Beautifi will reach out to you first thing in the morning to answer any questions you may have. So yeah, I'll leave this on screen. Tavia, if you want to
Yeah.
start going through the
So we've had some
questions.
questions have started coming in.
Okay.
The first one, if you want to field, is will my credit score be impacted if I decide to move forward?
Yes, great question. So yes, at the point of accepting a loan with Beautifi, there will be a hard check on your credit score. But then, assuming you're making your payments regularly with Beautifi, it should actually build your credit. So it can have a very positive impact on your credit score. But if you're just seeking to find out, all the details, ask questions, see what your rate is like, and just see how much you're approved for. That application itself and to get that information is no impact on your credit score.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Let's keep it in the Beautifi family here. Is there a maximum amount that you can apply for? And this is coming from someone who will need to do potentially multiple rounds of IVF and genetic testing, so a higher amount that they're going to be out of pocket.
So there really is no maximum at Beautifi. However, every applicant or group of co-applicants will be provided with a maximum approval. So, we'll let you know on that initial phone call, you've been approved for up to a maximum of, say $30,000 or $40,000. So it again depends on your application. And you're welcome to apply as a group or just bring on a cosigner right away so that you can increase that maximum.
Okay, I'm looking through here. There is one talking about, I'm going to field some of these. How do I know if I have fertility treatment coverage? So this is in reference to the fertility treatment coverage on benefits, which is something I can speak to. At Trio, we have a financial coordinator, and as part of her job and her assistance with our patients, she will reach out to your benefit company on your behalf. So she just needs a little bit of information, I believe, really just your insurance company's name, your name, or your partner's name, and also the insurance code or your plan number. But all of this information you can find in your in some of our Trio material you get. There's also information online, and then in the follow-up email that will be shared, we'll share the information you're learning about Beautifi tonight as well. I will tag Kayleen's email. Kayleen is our financial coordinator. So for anyone who is wondering if they do have fertility treatment coverage, you can reach out to Kayleen and she can look into that for you. And to kind of tag team on top of that, for anyone who is navigating this on their own, fertility treatment coverage is different than fertility medication coverage. And they are, sometimes you might have one and not the other. Usually if you have usually if you have treatment coverage, you will have some sort of medication coverage as well. But many people that don't have treatment coverage do have some sort of medication coverage. So just for people to have a heads up on that. Here's one for you, Amanda. The money that is received from Beautifi that is applied for on behalf of the patient, where does that go? Does that go to the patient? Does that go to Trio? How does that get paid?
Yes, so that goes directly to your clinic, so to Trio or Evolve. And then your payments would begin to Beautifi 30 days after we pay the clinic on your behalf.
Great. And I'm looking at another one here where someone is asking about the cost for fertility treatment. For someone who hasn't started their fertility treatment discussion with their doctor yet, It really is dependent on exactly what your protocol is and what is needed in your exact situation. Trio is very upfront with our fees. All of our fees are listed on our website. So you can go to triofertility.com, and in the navigation bar, you can go to fees and look at the different costs. And like I said, it will be dependent on what your doctor feels is needed in your particular case. And I will share that a direct link to that webpage um, after this webinar in the email as well. But you can kind of start from there. In general, an IVF cycle starts at is $1,300, $13,000. And then if there are additional fees such as genetic testing or more specialized fees, they would be on top of that. Another Beautifi question. What if you don't exactly know how much you'll need? As in the amounts will change over time and as you go through the process. And I would expect this would happen a lot for patients who
Mhm.
maybe are expecting to go through one cycle and then need to maybe do more cycles or need other sorts of testing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. So you could always start with a certain amount with Beautify. And of course, we pay the clinic on your behalf, and then you start making those payments. And if, a few months into your payments with Beautify, you realize that you're going to need to borrow a bit more for, more medication or another round, you can reach out to your rep at Beautify and they can see if they can amend your agreement to add more or just start a second application. Um, we have Mike from our customer experience team here at Beautify. Mike, I'm not sure if you want to chime in there if I got anything incorrect.
Yeah, more than happy to, Amanda. We can't amend the initial loan. However, Amanda, as you pointed out, you can certainly touch base with your rep at Beautify, and we would just begin a second application for you. And from there, we would work to see what we could approve you for, and but it would be subject to your initial loan being on time with your payments. Provided that you're on time with your payments, we are more than happy to support you in trying to get you approved for what you need to continue with your treatment.
Can I add on to that, Mike and Amanda? What would happen if someone, kind of the reverse of that, what if someone
Mm.
overestimated the amount that they were needing to borrow from Beautify and had a remaining balance after they had graduated from Trio with baby?
Hmm. Yeah, so if they know they may use it towards a future treatment at Trio, they could always keep it with Trio, almost like a credit, and continue to make their payments, and then they could use it towards, something in the future. Or, Trio could refund the remaining fees and they could just use that to make a lump sum payment to Beautify because we're open and we don't charge any penalties to pay early and we waive any remaining interest if you make early payments. There is that flexibility that if you do receive a refund from Trio, you can just use it to pay off that loan with Beautify.
Great, thank you. Another Beautify question here. Can I use Beautify for a funded cycle? So they're already under a government funded cycle, but there are always additional fees on the government cycles. So they use the money towards those fees?
Yeah, as long as the fees are over $1,000, yeah, you can definitely use, and like $1,000 including tax, as long as the total comes up to above 1,000, you can definitely use Beautify for anything above 1,000.
Great. Do you only cover the procedures and medications, or do you also cover other parts of the process like purchasing, shipping, washing, donor sperm, and things related to that?
Yes. So yeah, we do cover like all treatments and services offered at Trio. Third party reproduction, we also work with that team there. So yeah, anything as long as it's above $1,000, you can feel free to apply with Beautify, and of course we will pay Trio on your behalf.
I have a question then in addition
Yes.
because that brought up a good point. So for instance, in our third party program, patients acquire sperm and acquire eggs from an external third party source,
Mm.
which they pay that source directly. So I would
Okay.
assume that, and I might need to chime in here, but that is something that they pay to that. Let's say it's a sperm bank. They pay directly to the sperm bank.
Yeah, so if that is the case, I recommend, still going through the application. We are partnered with thousands of clinics across Canada in elective medical care. So there is a good possibility that we may already be partnered with that external, donor provider. And if we're not, we'll actually reach out to them on the patient's behalf, to basically just say, this patient's been approved for financing with us. We'd like to pay you on their behalf so they can access whatever they need and then make their monthly payments. So I'd recommend, just seeking an application and seeking an approval. And of course, like we'll do everything we can to ensure that you're all set up and good to go.
Great. There is a question here about the new Ontario tax credits. So, asking what we know about the new Ontario tax credits. So, we do know that as of January 1st, 2025, the Ontario government is extending a tax credit to anyone in Ontario, citizens of Ontario that are undergoing fertility treatments. We don't know the exact particulars of this yet. What we do know is that it covers up to the maximum amount in a year you could claim is $20,000. And the general rebate on that we're told is 20%. So you would have a rebate of 5% on your income tax for 2025. So in looking forward, any treatment in 2025 you would apply for on your 2025 income tax, which would be next March of 2026. What we don't know are the exact particulars regarding it. So the federal government already has a program. The METC is the shortened abbreviated name for it, the medical tax credit. And there is a calculation based on your income and based on a basic federal amount that gets you to that calculation. We don't know if the Ontario government will be using the same calculation or if it's just a straight 20% for every single person in Ontario who submits these receipts. We are supposed to know this in April, so stay tuned to our newsletter. If you're a Trio patient, stay tuned to our social media and we will let you know about this. But what we keep telling patients is just to please hold on to all your receipts and everything will be retroactive to January 1st, 2025. If there's extra money left in your Beautifi account, could it be used towards Trio's annual storage fees for eggs or for embryos?
Yeah, absolutely. You can use it towards any service that Trio and Evolve are offering.
Great. Someone is asking about the cost for an IUI and an IVF cycle on average. So the IUI cycles in Ontario are something that's covered if you have an OHIP card in Ontario. The only thing not covered in an IUI cycle is the process of sperm wash. So it's something that's needed in order to do the IUI process, and that is $750 for a sperm wash. So that would be something that is not covered by OHIP, as well as your medication in an IUI cycle or in an IVF cycle is not covered by your government health card. An IVF cycle on average at Trio is $13,000. And as I mentioned, you can also check out all our fees on our website, triofertility.com, and under the fees section. Now it looks like we are getting down in questions. We only have one or two more questions here. So if people have more questions that they want answered, please feel free to put them in the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen while we have Amanda and Mike, the experts here. As Amanda mentioned, of course, we will be sharing a link so that you can link to their website. And we do have access to their expertise through our financial coordinator as well. So we can always get your questions answered, but while we have them here tonight, another question we have up here is what is covered in a funded IVF cycle? So for patients who are on the Ontario IVF funding list with TRIO, and when it is their time for a funded cycle, when their time period comes up, the most things are covered that are deemed of necessity by the Ontario government. So medication is not covered, but the actual procedure of retrieving the eggs, so the egg retrieval process, as well as all the blood work, doctor's appointments, ultrasounds, everything like that leading up to that. And then in the lab, the in vitro fertilization of the egg and between the egg and the sperm is covered. And then in that cycle, fresh embryo transfer. So creating embryos in the lab and then doing one fresh embryo cycle is covered under the Ontario government plan. Things that aren't covered kind of off the top of my head. And again, I believe all of this information is readily available on our website. Things like genetic testing is not covered. If you need the AIM test and an endometrial biopsy test, that's something that's not covered. We offer AI intelligence on embryos and on eggs, the violet or the magenta. This is something that isn't covered by the Ontario government. Off the top of my head, any sort of add-on that would have you looking at kind of the quality of the egg, embryo, and things like that are not something that's covered by the government. The actual procedure is covered, though. Is cycle monitoring covered by OHIP? And if not, what are the costs associated with it? So by cycle monitoring, so cycle monitoring in terms of IUI or in terms of testing, both of those ways to look at following a female's cycle are covered under OHIP if you have a referral from a healthcare practitioner. So if your doctor refers you to see a specialist at TRIO, then all your testing, except for your AMH test, the AMH blood test, which is needed to look at your antral follicle count. So it looks at that count. That cost is $125. That's the only thing in terms of your initial appointment and your cycle monitoring that wouldn't be covered by OHIP. I'm trying to think on the male side, a semen analysis is covered if you're required to do a DNA fragmentation analysis. That's something that's not covered by OHIP, and that looks at more in detail at the sperm factor. So it really depends on what the specialist thinks is going on and what sort of tests they ask for after your first appointment. I hope that covers that one. I think that was the gist of the cycle monitoring. So we are done with our questions here. As we wrap it up, I'll just give, if anyone has any lingering questions, but again, Amanda provided the Beautifi QR code, so please check that out as well. Again, we'll mention that you will be receiving a follow-up email and you can have access to this recording so you don't have to have remembered everything. And feel free always to reach out to us at TRIO.